On the morning of January 6, 2021, an iron gate slowly opened in the middle of Argentina's Iberá Wetlands. 3 jaguars stepped out onto the grass, paused for a moment, then disappeared into the shadows of the reed beds. Everything happened in silence, but that moment carried the weight of 9 million US dollars and 70 long years of waiting. Scientists watching from a distance held their breath. Bringing an apex predator back to a place where it had once been wiped out was never easy. One mistake, and everything could collapse. But by 2026, data from AI systems and GPS collars had exceeded every prediction. The jaguar population did not stop at 20 individuals. They triggered a massive chain reaction, completely changing 13,000 square kilometers of territory. Aerial cameras recorded an ecosystem reshaping itself at an unimaginable speed. So, what really happened after that iron gate opened? The latest geological report in 2026 confirmed that the Iberá Wetland system had operated smoothly for 1.8 million years, ever since the giant Paraná River changed course and left behind a still inland sea. Across thousands of millennia, every living creature here, from more than 350 bird species, 60 reptile species, to complex aquatic plant systems, evolved and survived under the shadow of one single order, the jaguar. They were the great coordinating machine, maintaining the balance of an entire food web made up of 4,000 species. Jaguars controlled the number of herbivores. Herbivores controlled vegetation, and vegetation shaped the flow of water, a perfect loop without a flaw. The collapse did not come from nature. From the 1930s to 1953, the expansion of the leather industry and the spread of cattle ranching pushed into Iberá. The decision to remove the apex predator at that time was seen by authorities as a reasonable move, a necessary economic trade-off to protect commercial cattle herds. Hunters received large rewards for every patterned hide. Jaguars were relentlessly hunted, shot down the moment they came into view. The population was fragmented, lost its ability to breed across groups, and finally faded away completely. In less than 20 years, a biological era that had lasted millions of years was ended by human interference. Along with the jaguar, a series of other native species also vanished without a trace. Giant river otters disappeared completely. Giant anteaters declined severely. Pampas deer fell to the edge of extinction. Flocks of red and green macaws that once filled the skies of Argentina's Mesopotamia were also wiped out. From survey flights, the Iberá Wetlands still kept the vast beauty of open water. But beneath that magnificent outer shell, the biological core had been hollowed out completely. Removing the apex predator was once expected to create a safe paradise where the rest of the ecosystem could grow, but the absence of claws and fangs was exactly the button that triggered a devastating chain collapse no one had predicted. Comparative ecological data from the period between 1990 and 2020 revealed a number that deeply alarmed scientists. The density of capybaras, the largest rodents in the world in central Iberá, had surged to 129 individuals per square kilometer. When their only natural enemy disappeared, the new destroyer of the wetland did not carry claws or venom. It was a gentle, slow-moving herbivore. An adult capybara consumes between 3 and 5 kilograms of vegetation each day. Multiply that by tens of thousands of individuals reproducing without control, and the Iberá Wetlands faced enormous pressure. Hundreds of tons of vegetation disappeared every day. They gathered in large groups along the banks, openly devouring grass from dawn until dusk because there was no longer any threat. The transition zones between water and land, once the most productive habitats, were scraped bare down to the roots. Without plant roots to hold the soil, the structure of the banks was severely eroded by underground flows. Grass was cropped down to the mud surface, exposing entire nesting areas for hundreds of waterbird species. Insects lost their natural protective layer, pulling down the ecosystem of insect-eating species with them. The Iberá Wetlands, once a complex and multi-layered system, were worn down and flattened into a severely degraded landscape. They were being eaten away by the gentlest creatures in the system. At this point, one truth about ecosystems is exposed. To save an ecosystem, we are forced to choose between two paths: continue using artificial intervention to protect gentle herbivores, or bring predators back and accept the harsh original food chain. Are you on the side of human intervention, or the side of brutal survival? Leave your comment below to defend your view. And if you find this topic worth thinking about, do not forget to press like and share the video so this ecological debate can reach more people. For decades, management agencies tried countless intervention methods. Mechanical fences were built, population control programs using machines were activated, and millions of dollars were spent each year. But the grass still could not grow tall, and the degradation continued in an irreversible direction. The ecosystem had lost its most important gear, and no artificial machine could replace it. Desperation spread until an unexpected force from the fashion industry decided to change the entire situation. In early 2026, the financial summary report from Fundación Rewilding Argentina recorded that total investment in the effort to revive the Iberá Wetlands had exceeded $15 million US dollars, beginning with a bold decision in the 1990s. Doug Tompkins, co-founder of the fashion company The North Face, left behind the world of luxury consumerism, moved to South America, and bought 150,000 hectares of degraded ranchland. It was a move that led the media to constantly question whether there was a hidden plot to seize water resources under the cover of conservation. But the land was not exploited. It was used to build the foundation for Iberá National Park, covering 700,000 hectares. Rewilding, Argentina, established a breeding center on San Alonso Island with some of the strictest biosafety standards in the Americas. Obtaining wild jaguars was an extremely complex genetic filtering process, lasting many years, to find animal sources from across the region. Jaguars born there had to hunt live prey inside enclosed areas, and were absolutely not allowed to develop dependence or lose their fear of humans. Then came the event of January 6, 2021. The jaguar Mariua and her two cubs stepped into the wild. Immediately, scientists witnessed a powerful phenomenon known as the ecology of fear. A behavioral analysis report published in the first quarter of 2026 showed that jaguars did not need to kill large numbers of capybaras to restore vegetation. Grazing pressure began to fall even before the first bite marks appeared. Fear reshaped everything. The scent, footprints, and faint frequency of jaguar appearances alone sent an alarm signal running through the entire wetland system. Capybara herds immediately abandoned the habit of lying exposed and grazing for hours in open areas. Their activity range shrank, became more dispersed, and they had to stay highly alert, while constantly moving to find shelter. They no longer dared to linger too long in one place. The return of the predator triggered a biological chain reaction that no human engineering project could copy. But the miraculous operation of nature always comes with an extremely high price. Data updated to May 2026 reveals an explosion beyond even the most optimistic scientific predictions. From the first 3 individuals in 2021, the free-living jaguar population in Iberá reached 45. Natural reproduction happened at an astonishing speed, proving their complete adaptation to the ancient environment. Their presence brought rapid regeneration to the landscape. The latest field surveys show that plant biomass in areas once overgrazed has recovered by more than 40%. Tall grasses have returned. The soft transition zone between water and land has rebuilt its cohesion, preventing erosion. Endemic birds have found safe nesting areas again. Seed dispersal through fruit-eating animals and birds has accelerated. The entire gear system of this giant ecosystem has begun turning smoothly. The good news is that an unprecedented ecological miracle has been established. But the uncomfortable truth is this: the laws of the wild never match the borders humans draw on maps. A shocking event in October 2024 exposed the fatal weakness of the whole campaign. Akai, a 2-year-old female jaguar, part of the first generation born and raised completely in the wild in the Iberá Wetlands after 70 years, was selected for relocation to El Impenetrable National Park, 375 miles away. The ambition of conservationists was to expand the successful model and establish a second population in the Chaco region. Only 20 days after she was released into the new environment, the signal from Akai's GPS collar suddenly stopped transmitting. A large search team was deployed. The device was found at the bottom of the Bermejo River. Field analysis and forensic evidence concluded that the animal had been deliberately eliminated. The loss of one individual carrying rare genetic material was estimated to cause ecological damage worth more than 2.6 billion pesos. Years of genetic reconstruction, habitat preparation, and tracking were erased in an instant by one illegal human act. Scientists can design a perfect environment inside a protected area. But when these free animals cross the invisible boundary into the human world, every layer of protection becomes meaningless. The real battle is no longer in biological indicators, but in the minds and wallets of the people living along the borders. Around the boundary of Iberá National Park is the livelihood system of about 1,800 landowners, farmers, and cattle ranchers. A jaguar, patrolling its territory, has no concept of private property. When a cattle rancher loses calves to a predator attack, that loss is written directly as a negative number in the family's financial records. The gap between the nature restoration ideals of non-governmental organizations and the anger of a farmer who has just lost income cannot be filled with propaganda documents or small livestock vaccination campaigns. Based on official satellite data and 2026 land survey reports for Latin America from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, or FAO, free grazing pastureland in the Iberá buffer zone has shrunk by 35% in only half a decade. The expansion of protected areas has pushed cattle herds into a narrower space, directly exhausting local vegetation and increasing economic pressure on farmers. Even before jaguar fangs touch their animals, some large ranch owners firmly reject compensation programs. To them, accepting payment from Western conservation funds means signing a surrender document on their own family heritage land. From this extreme tension, a fierce ethical debate has erupted. Turning cattle ranchers into a workforce serving ecotourism, is this truly a humane model, or just a forced form of survival labor? When hundreds of thousands of hectares of land are acquired for conservation, century-old grazing routes are immediately cut off. Many local people admit they did not voluntarily change jobs, they were simply pushed into a position where there was no other path left. They are forced to abandon defensive habits, learn foreign languages, and smile while serving international tourists on the very land where their ancestors once rode freely on horseback. This simmering resentment has created a volcano waiting to erupt, exposing the blurred line between saving nature and stripping away the cultural livelihood of human communities. And yet, the giant wheel of history does not stop to wait for regret. Regional economic data, released in early 2026, delivered a practical blow to these conflicts, pointing to an undeniable structural shift. The village of Colonia Carlos Pellegrini, tucked along the edge of the wetland, was once a stronghold of caiman hunters and nomadic cattle herders. Now it has completely transformed. Income from wildlife, watching ecotourism in the area. has surged by 600% compared with the period before 2021. Ranchers who once hated jaguars, such as Jorge Acevedo, have become tour guides. Hundreds of visitors from 6 continents are willing to spend large amounts of money just to sit silently on a boat in the morning mist, waiting for the moment a jaguar slips through the reeds. The local economic report for 2026 gives a clear conclusion: one living wild jaguar creates an enormous chain of added value for the regional economy, thousands of times greater than the value of a few lost cattle. The change is happening through a new invisible but brutal economic contract. Local people are forced to protect the very creature their ancestors once killed, because that has become the only path for them to keep surviving. The rise of the Iberá Wetlands by 2026 has introduced a defining concept into academic circles: ecological memory. The complex relationship between predator and prey, the seed dispersal cycles of plants, and the way water shapes floodplain terrain. None of it was erased after 70 years. The ecosystem here is like a vast stage that had been silent for 7 decades, waiting only for its lead actor to appear. When the jaguar stepped out, everything automatically locked back into place with powerful acceleration. Nature, when given back its space, does not merely recover, it truly surges forward. However, behind those impressive images of restoration, many questions remain unanswered even among conservationists. The first concern lies in geographic limits. AI data warns that the Iberá Wetlands can support a maximum of only 100 jaguars. Once saturation is reached, they will inevitably spill into populated areas, cross every artificial fence system, and ignite serious conflicts. Even if territorial boundaries hold, the life of the wetland still depends on one extremely fragile variable: distant visitors. This restoration is fed almost entirely by global tourism money. One shock, such as an economic downturn cutting off flight routes, could push local people who have already sold their cattle into a severe livelihood crisis. The possibility that they might return once again to destructive forms of natural resource extraction is very real. The harshest truth strikes at the core nature of the project: it is an unfinished picture. The current population of 45 jaguars is not truly free. Beneath the wild appearance, they are being deeply genetically managed through pairing algorithms to avoid inbreeding. This control unintentionally turns Iberá into a giant semi-artificial reserve, rather than a truly independent ecosystem. Because in the end, after decades of effort, we did not simply bring back a large cat with a beautiful coat. We effectively used $9 million US as a spark to successfully activate a giant 1.8 million-year-old biological coordination machine that had just awakened after 70 years of total freeze. Nature has shown its great ability to heal itself. The stage is lit. The actor has entered the role. But the real question for the rest of this century is not whether wildlife can survive. The question is this: after we have pieced the broken fragments back together with our own hands, do we have enough courage to truly step back, let go, and allow nature to decide its own fate? And what do you think about the harsh trade-off between restoring a wild empire and erasing a human livelihood culture that has existed for hundreds of years? In the end, are we truly saving nature, or are we quietly building a giant zoo without a roof? Leave your perspective in the comments section below, and if you believe this video brings valuable ecological truths beyond ordinary patterns, do not forget to press like, share, and subscribe. Join us as we continue decoding the most shocking hidden corners of the natural world in the next videos.